is sponsored by the Fireman Moving Company. The Fireman Moving Company is the official moving company of WKU Athletics. Not only can they be trusted to move all the coaches in and out of Western, but they can move you anywhere nationwide. The Fireman Moving Company is owned and operated by firemen and is founded by WKU alumni. If you're looking to move sometime soon, give them a call at 270-791-1755 and get yourself a free quote. Welcome to Topper Talk, your number one Western Kentucky athletics podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Moffitt, and I'm joined by co-host Tyler Bailey. Hilltopper Nation, whether it's happening on the hill or on the road, grab those red towels, stand up and cheer, because it's up next on Topper Talk. All right, welcome back, and thank you for downloading and listening to another episode of the Topper Talk podcast. We are the official podcast of the Red Towel Trust Collective, and we're a proud member of the College Huddle podcast community. As always, make sure you're following us on all of our social media platforms. We're pretty much on all of them. Just search Topper Talk, you will find us. We always post a lot of good content, especially on Twitter. All of our video episodes are posted to YouTube. Just a lot of good stuff. Just make sure you're following us. Got Tyler here with me, man. It's been a while, but you ready to jump back in and get this thing going?
Yeah, man, let's get into it. It's been way too long before it's able to get the episode out.
It's all good though. We, both of us have had our own, just stuff going on. It's, we're our own bosses in this outfit, so we could take a little break, kind of before the summer kicks off. Because once the summer gets going, man, we're busy. The recording schedule is now about to be on fire here the next couple months until football season kicks off. But before we jump into our first episode of our position series breakdown for this year, we've got to get caught up with our Red Towel wrap-up, which catches us up on all the athletic news and info that we've missed since we last recorded. So, Tyler, hit us with that Red Towel wrap-up.
All right, so leading off, the WKU softball ended their season 30-21-1 overall. They were 14-10-1 in Conference USA play. They lost to La Tech in the Conference USA tournament, but they did have a really good season considering at the very beginning it started out kind of rough, but they came back, got some big wins, beat Louisville up there in Louisville, and that the season was good overall for them.
Yeah, really excited for the softball team. Obviously, it didn't end, how we'd like it to end. Last year they fell short in the conference tournament finals. This year they didn't quite make it to the finals, but they were kind of rebuilding. They lost some big weapons from last year's team. This year's team was a little bit younger. Hoping this season of experience and adding a couple of new pieces, next year will help just keep building that program to that championship caliber level that we know and expect from softball. But really proud of them. Like you said, the season didn't start or end how we wanted it, but there was definitely a lot of flashes of some good softball all throughout the season. So really excited for what the future holds for the softball team.
Moving on, WKU track and field had 4 athletes qualify for the NCAA East qualifier. And here's how they performed. Kason Barton, he finished 35th in the hammer throw with a distance of 60.8 meters. Van Thrasher, he finished 46th in the 110-meter hurdles with a time of 14.69 seconds. Nice. Sterling Weldon finished 31st in the long jump with a distance of 7.18 meters. And Cameron Horton finished 40th in the 100-meter dash with a time of 10.6 seconds. And 26 in the 200-meter dash with a time of 21.12 seconds.
Yeah, really awesome that we had 4 of our athletes, after the Conference USA Championship, they qualified to go to the NCAA East Regional. Just really awesome to get to go up, to that next level and compete at the NCAAs. Obviously, if they would have finished, qualified at the regional, they would have went to the NCAA Nationals. Like Katie Eisenbarger did last year in the high jump, but still just really cool that we had 4 athletes. And I believe only one of those, if I'm not mistaken, I think Kason is the only senior of that group. So just, that really kind of paints a really strong picture for the future of our track and field program, that we really have a young group of athletes kind of leading the charge going forward. So congratulations to all them on a really great season.
Now we're going to finish it up with WKU baseball. They had a very historic season, and it ended at the Oxford Regionals. WKU ended the season 46-14. They advanced to the regionals after beating Jack State in the Conference USA tournament finals. In the regional, they lost to Georgia Tech and Ole Miss.
Yeah, we had been meaning, to get together and do a baseball episode because baseball just absolutely was on fire this year. 46-14. I mean, the second most wins ever in program history. Coach Rardon and staff in their third season on the hill just they took another step forward, and they didn't just take a step forward; they took a large, large bound or a large jump forward and what the expectations of the baseball program are and will be going forward. Really awesome. They won the Conference USA tournament. I think over the last 2 weeks, I don't think I've ever watched as much baseball as I have in the last 2 weeks. During the season, tried to watch as much as I could. Went to a couple games at the Nick. But with the Conference USA tournament and then the NCAA regionals, kind of back to back, like watching a lot of baseball the last couple weeks. And it's been really fun watching this team. The Conference USA tournament, they had 3 come from behind walk-off victories, including the championship game against Jacksonville State in extra innings. Just absolutely amazing. And then, they got put in a really tough regional at the Ole Miss, the Oxford regional. That's obviously a top 16 program if you're hosting. Georgia Tech was also in that regional who, they won the ACC regular season title. And I think it was the first time since like 1998 that the ACC regular season champion wasn't hosting a regional. So, they kind of got snubbed. You can say that was a really just kind of a bad draw for us. And then we also had Murray State in that regional as well. And we know how good they are. We played them earlier this season. They were our very first loss of the season in extra innings. I think we lost 2-1 to them. So, just a really tough regional. We went to Oxford and played some really good baseball. Drew Georgia Tech in that first game, lost to them. And then we played Ole Miss in our second game. They had lost to Murray State their first game, just kind of got surprised and upset in that first game. And we played Ole Miss, and they had a really good ball game, man. They hit a lot of home runs against us. But we did scrap and claw to the very end, the very last out. Even in the ninth inning, we had a chance. We were right there. We could have, potentially tied the game or won the game. So, nothing to hang their heads about. Really proud of the baseball team and the program. Even after, the end of the season, we didn't advance to the super regionals like we all would have hoped for, but it's just still an amazing season. And now the focus kind of turns to, we hope we obviously keep Coach Rardon. That's always kind of a scare when you start to have the sustained success that we've had at this level now for 3 years in a row with him. We heard whispers, rumors of him getting interest last year. I think that'll probably be the case this year. Hopefully we can hold on to him. Hopefully he wants to see, finish up kind of what he started here. We've got the indoor practice facility still being built. Maybe he wants to be around when that opens up and is, at the disposal of his baseball team and program. But really excited for where this baseball team is going in the immediate future. I think they've kind of announced to Conference USA, the Dallas Baptists of the world, the Louisiana Techs of the world, the teams that are always really, really good that, hey, we're right here with you. And really excited, really proud for this team. And hopefully, we keep that band together moving forward and look forward to next season.
Yes, it will be very exciting. Hopefully, this offseason is very uneventful, and we keep a lot of players, and we was able to keep Rardon. But that concludes this week's episode of the Red Towel Wrap Up. Moff, back to you.
Yeah, always good stuff. Just really good wrap up. The spring seasons basically coming to an end now. All the sports are done, and we're kind of hitting that summer lull. Schools out, college and high schools, et cetera, all out for the summer. So sports wise, it kind of gets kind of slow and kind of boring. But for us, we start ramping into our position breakdown series, which we've done. This will be our third summer in a row doing it now. We break down literally every position on the football team. We talk about all the players that have left the program, whether it's graduation or the portal, all the players that we've signed, whether it's high school or the portal, and then who we expect the starters to be, the impact players to be, MVPs, just all that fun stuff. Just really get to know this football team and kind of what they expect coming into the new 2025 season. But we kick off that series with the coaches episode, which again, I think, as much praise as we give Coach Helton and his staff for, every year kind of being masters of the transfer portal and always finding and targeting good talent and bringing them to Bowling Green, Kentucky, and getting them on campus and getting them committed. And once they're on the field, they play at a really high level. I don't think Coach Helton gets enough praise for just how good he's been at the transfer portal, even before the portal is what it is now, which is just kind of chaos and a mess. He's been good at it now for going on 7 seasons. But I think just as much praise should be given to him for also finding, up and coming assistant coaches, young coaches that can help him on staff and help them develop talent, identify talent, and win ball games at the coaching level as well. So our first series is going to be breaking down the coaching staff itself, talking about some of the new names, obviously some of the people that are returning that we've already are aware of, but just talking about every single position coach that we have and kind of what to expect. And if it's a new name and face, where they came from and who they are. That obviously starts at the top with Coach Tyson Helton. He is entering his 7th season. He is 48-32 overall. He has a 4-2 record in bowl games, 0 conference championships. That's obviously the, I guess, the big, strike against him at this point. If you want to, comb over what he's done here at Bowling Green, we finished 8-6 last year. We lost to Jacksonville State in the conference championship title game, and then we lost to James Madison in our bowl game. Obviously, like I mentioned earlier, Coach Helton is really known for his player development, his talent identifying and acquisition via the portal, and then his assistant coaches identifying and retaining them. We're always competitive. We're always in the top 1, 2, 3 of the conference, in position to possibly win a conference title or at least get to a conference championship game. His only con, we've talked about it before, he hasn't won the big game. He has not won that conference championship game. He's been there a couple of times, lost to UTSA several years ago in 22, I think it was 21 or 22. Just couldn't get over that hump. Then obviously last year, how it ended, we were kind of in the driver's seat in November, controlled our destiny of potentially being able to host that conference championship game, and just kind of backpedaled into, how that season ended, took a couple bad losses, then obviously ended that season, with just a butt kicking to Jacksonville State and James Madison. There was rumored interest last year from Purdue and East Carolina, potentially sniffing around looking for some Titan Helton services, but that obviously proved to be nothing, as obviously he's still here in Bowling Green. And I think part of that is because he hasn't gotten over that hump and won that title game. So Tyler, what are your thoughts on just Coach Helton and obviously having him back for season number 7 and his overall tenure here and just what we can expect from him moving forward?
I mean, overall, I am a fan of Tyson Hilton. It seems like he always has a good quarterback and a good receiving core, which kind of, makes other parts of the offense kind of not as needed, or I feel like don't get to show out. But, all those players come to play. And you're right, back last November, we was playing La Tech. It just seemed like something in the offense was broken. We couldn't ever get good ball movement. We couldn't. I don't even think we found the end zone that game. And then after that, it just seemed like the rest of the games that season, all just kind of crap the bed. And I don't know who was on. I never heard anything, or it just from the fans' perspective, something seemed off. And you're right, he ain't won a conference championship. That is one thing that needs to change. And I'm hoping this is a year that it does. But you're right. I mean, his player development is superb. He's able to identify the talent in the portal, and coming out of high school, he's always good at doing that. And he always seems like he has a bunch of good coaches around him. I mean, I like him. I don't think he's in the hot seat. Don't think he's even in the warm seat. But it would really be nice to see him win that conference championship and have a stellar season. I mean, he went 4-2 in bowl games. I mean, that was what 3-1. No, it was 4-1. Before last season, but um, I mean, it just seems like he has a really good tenure here so far.
Absolutely. Then we talked about the offense last year just being a little bit inconsistent. You talked about that Louisiana Tech game. Last year just never felt like the offense kind of opened up to its full potential and was really, that air raid up tempo, that we expect and that we hope to see. Um, but we've got a new face as the offensive coordinator and the quarterback coach for the 2025 season. His name is Rick Bowie. It is his first year at WKU. He is replacing Will Friend, who went to UNC. He was offensive coordinator last year, and Drew Hollingshead, who was also co-offensive coordinator and quarterback coach last year, he went to Coastal Carolina. So he replaces both of those coaches in those positions. He is the OC and QB coach. He comes over to WKU from Abilene Christian. They were one of the top passing offenses at the FCS level. They were fourth in total offense and 16th in scoring offense. Before Abilene Christian, he was at Valdosta State for 2 years. And one thing I really like about this coaching hire, this coaching change that was made was one, um, just Helton saw a need for a change and made the change. And I think we saw that in the past after the 2020 season, the infamous Piggy T year that just didn't pan out, how anyone would have wanted. I think we all remember what happened in 2021. We brought over Zach Kitley and Bailey Zappi from Houston Baptist and just had a record breaking year in 2021. So, this is really kind of giving me the vibes of that off season and just, Tyson Helton being self-aware enough of what this offense needs, what the team needs, and that knowing that we needed a jolt of fresh energy, at that offensive coordinator position. And I really think that, a young up and coming coach like Rick Bowie, who has already cut his teeth at the FCS level, showed that he can produce a high flying offense that scores a lot of points. And oh yeah, we also brought his quarterback with him, Maverick McIver. Obviously, we'll talk about him more when we get to the quarterback episode. But just really on paper, it's a really solid pickup in my opinion. Tyler, what are your thoughts on the hiring of Rick Bowie?
Well, I think it's an absolutely home run hire. Not only has he been at Valdosta State and Abilene Christian, but before that, he was able to get some graduate assistant coaching at Houston, where he served as a wide receiver coach in 2021 and an offensive graduate assistant in 2019 and 2020. But he was also at West Virginia before that. So he does have some P5, P4 coaching experience, or at least some 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 of that good big school drive in his blood. So I think it's only going to help us here. I mean, I was never really a fan of having the co-offensive coordinators because I feel like that could get kind of confusing. But I feel like this hire and him bringing in his quarterback, who is it should play lights out. But we'll talk to him. We'll talk about him later, like you said. I feel like this is a home run hire that Hill was able to get.
Absolutely. The next coach is the running back coach. Another new face. It is Brian Applewhite. It will be his first year at WKU. He replaces Andre Crenshaw, who left for Coastal Carolina. In 2023, Applewhite was the running back coach at Buffalo. In 2022, he was at Nebraska. In 2 years, he spent at TCU in 20 and 21. And he has over 20 years of coaching experience. So just a really experienced guy who's been around some really good running back rooms. And I think the running back room, especially for WKU, is kind of I don't want to say it's underutilized. We're obviously going to be more pass heavy, but it's just kind of an underrated part of our offense. And I think, especially when we talk about the guys that we have this year, what I saw at the spring game, just knowing what we have returning in a George Hart, his athleticism, his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield and make tough runs, and then some couple other pieces that we've added to the running back room. I'm really excited for the potential of that. And then when you add in a coach with as much running back experience and has been, around some big programs, Nebraska is not a no name program. He's been around, has seen some good running back rooms, some good running backs. Obviously has learned just things that he can share with our running backs and just help open up, the most that they can bring to this offense. So Tyler, what are your thoughts on, the running back coach, Brian Applewhite?
I mean, sometimes you need a coach that's a little bit long in the tooth. And I feel like, you're right. He has that experience. He's been around a crap ton of players throughout the seasons. And to be in a profession for 20 years, especially one like coaching, I feel like you got to be good. And I feel like this acquisition is going to definitely help our running back room, because you're right. It is kind of underutilized. I, I mean, really, I think the last time we had a main back that really garnered much attention was probably Ace Wells, right? The one that had an over 1,000-yard season, but I feel like with Brian Applewhite coming in, I feel like that's definitely going to help our running backs and be able to propel them to great things here at WKU.
The next coach is our wide receiver coach, and that is Jason Barnes, also another newcomer. It will be his first year at WKU. He was replacing Zach Mizell, who left WKU and went to Georgia Southern. Jason Barnes spent 2 years at Charlotte as the wide receiver coach and an offensive analyst. He played his college ball at South Carolina, and professionally he played for the San Diego Chargers and for the Winnipeg Bombers. And I know just from what I've seen so far, Jason Barnes is one, he's really active in recruiting. He's already brought several wide receivers and got them committed here. So I really like his engagement, what I see on social media, kind of that excitement that he brings to the recruiting. He's a younger coach, but he's also been there, done that, played, high level college football, played professionally in the NFL and in the CFL. And I think that kind of player and, that can translate into coaching can be a really solid addition to your staff and can really, hey, I can show you how to get to the next level. And, this program itself and the offense that we run and highlight, really gives wide receivers that opportunity to showcase their talents and get to the next level. We've seen that over the last several years with guys going to the NFL. So I'm really excited for Jason Barnes. I think he could be an excellent addition to our staff. Tyler, what are your thoughts on Coach Barnes?
Just another great hire. You're right. I mean, he knows what it takes to get to the next level. And I'm sure he can instill in these players that what they got to do, what the next level is looking for in these players, and for what them to work on. And I think this is just going to be a great hire for already a position that is really put on show down here at WKU.
The next coach we're going to highlight is our first returning coach. That's our offensive line coach, Joe Bernardi. It is his second season at WKU. He was previously at Troy before last season. I think we talked last year about his recruiting prowess. I think as soon as he was announced as a coach here last year, we had 3 or 4 commitments, several of those from Troy. And one thing I've noticed, so far in the early signing period in November and then the spring signing period is, man, he is finding some big boys in the transfer portal. Like the depth that we are going to have on the offensive line this year. I don't know who the starting 5 is going to be at this point. I don't even know if Helton and Bernardi know who's going to be the starting 5 offensive linemen at this point. But I know that we've got a lot of big bodies up front and a lot of depth. Guys that have played, they've got college tape, they've been in weight rooms. I'm really impressed by the skill that he brings in the recruiting game. Then obviously translating that over and making it be successful, whether it's for pass protection or the run game, whatever that is. Just really excited for what I've seen from Coach Bernardi now going into his second season with WKU. Tyler, what are your thoughts on Coach Bernardi?
you talking about recruiting big boys. I was looking at the roster today, and I can't remember what the guy's name was, but I think he was a freshman, a true freshman. He was like, I think it was a true freshman. He may be a red shirt, but he's like 6'3" to 6'5" and 338. So that boy's a house cat. And if you know Joe had any job in recruiting him, which I'm sure he did, keep him coming. Last season our offensive line was pretty good. It could have held up in a few more in a few games a little bit more, but overall, I mean, the offensive line was probably one of the strengths of our offense. So, and I know Joe Bernardi had a big part to do with that. So I'm excited to have him back for a second year.
See, our next coach to talk about is our tight ends coach, and that is Kevin O'Brien. It is his second season at WKU. It'll be his first season as a position coach. Last year, he was an assistant offensive line coach. He replaces Grant Chestnut, who left and went to Colorado State to be the tight end coach there. Before WKU, Kevin O'Brien was at Mercer for 4 seasons as a tight end coach and an offensive recruiting coordinator. So obviously he's been in this role before at another institution. And I really like that he was part of an offensive recruiting coordinator, because that just tells me he knows his way around, recruiting grounds and having those relationships with schools, and just, has those contacts to be out there and finding good talent. And I think, our tight end group is another group that I'm really excited with some of the pieces that we added, even though we lost River Helms. We'll talk about that whenever we get to tight ends. But I think we really added some solid pieces to our tight end group that are going to really help us just in all facets of our game, not just getting out and making plays, catching the ball, but in our pass protection and run game as well. So really excited for the tight ends and what Coach O'Brien can bring to that room. Tyler, what are your thoughts on Coach O'Brien?
Yeah, it is really good to have him back, and especially coming back as a tight end coach because, as you said, it is a very important part of our offense. We need to uh, keep them playing good and keep them getting passes and getting the first downs and touchdowns. But you're right, him being a recruiting coordinator, I mean that's only going to be a strength in him, and I'm really excited about having him back to Western for a second year.
The next coach to talk about is our special teams coordinator, and he is our assistant head coach. He's the longest tenured coach here at WKU. He's been here every single year with Coach Helton, and that's Andy LaRussa. And the fact that he's been named the associate head coach really tells me kind of all I need to know about Coach LaRussa. Tyson Helton obviously has a lot of faith and a lot of trust in him. And I think if you go back and look at what our special teams has done, over the last, 3, 4, 5 years, we're consistently one of the better teams just across the board in special teams, whether it's punting, place kicking, kick and punt returns, just whatever that is. There's just a lot of consistency in that room, in that group. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. I think the leadership and just Coach Helton keeping somebody like him around for now 7 seasons really says a lot. And I really like that we have someone that is kind of a veteran. With the changes, we have some new faces with the coaching staff. We've got several guys that have been here 2 and 3 years, but a few guys it's their first year. It's really nice for Tyson Helton to have someone that he can lean on as his associate head coach to help him make sure everybody's on that same page. So I'm really glad that Coach LaRussa is back for another year. Tyler, what are your thoughts on Coach LaRussa?
I like it. Special teams is kind of they only really get noticed whenever they mess up or they make a really long kick or a kickoff return for a touchdown. But I mean, our special teams is typically like what top of the conference in Conference USA. So he's doing something really well, and he keeps on doing it good. And being him as assistant head coach, you're right. Helton has a lot of trust in him, and I think it's well founded. And I'm just really glad we was able to get him back for his 7th, 8th year right now.
The next coach that we're going to talk about is our defensive coordinator. And while it's not a new coach to WKU, it is his first year as the defensive coordinator, and that is Coach Devon Brown. It is his third season overall with WKU. It will be his first as defensive coordinator. He is replacing Tyson Summers, who left and went to Colorado State after the season last year. Previously, he was our defensive backs coach. In 2024, WKU finished second in Conference USA in passing defense. He previously was a coach at Ole Miss, and he played college football at FAU. Um, and I think we talked about it. I think when this news was announced that really excited for a coach, a young up and coming coach like Devon Brown, to get this opportunity. Because he's one of the coaches that if you don't follow him on Twitter, on X, you need to follow him because you can see the energy and the relationships that he brings to the recruiting. And if he's anything like that in his defensive back rooms, he just brings a lot of good energy and obviously a lot of ball knowledge. As someone, again, young coach, been there, done that, played at FAU under Lane Kiffin, coached with him at Ole Miss, and now has been here at WKU for a few years. So the fact that we were able to retain him and give him that defensive coordinator title, even as a co-DC with another guy that we'll talk about in just a moment, I think that really says a lot. And I think, he's kind of a shining example of what I mean when I say Coach Helton identifies young talent, especially as assistant coaches, and gets the most out of them. Because at some point, Devon Brown is going to be a rising superstar and is going to end up at a school bigger than WKU, making more money than WKU can offer. And I'm not going to be mad at him whenever that opportunity comes. But while he's here, I'm really excited that we're giving him an opportunity, and he's earned that opportunity to become our defensive coordinator. He's proved that with his excellent work with our defensive backs over the last 2 years. And I'm really looking forward to seeing, how our defense changes, has tweaks, new wrinkles in it with him at the leadership as our defensive coordinator. So, Tyler, what are your thoughts on Devon Brown?
Once again, I like it. I think this is going to be a aggressive style offense, and I'm really hoping it is. The defensive backs was excellent underneath his guidance, and I'm excited to see what the rest of the defense is going to be like with him at the helm of it.
And then, kind of on that same coin, talking about our other defensive coordinator, co-defensive coordinator, that is Davis Merritt. Also, his third season at WKU. He was previously the inside linebackers coach, and was also promoted to co-DC when Tyson Summers left. Previously, before that, he was a defensive quality control coordinator at Georgia. Could kind of almost kind of wash, rinse, repeat, say the same things I said about Devon Brown. Davis Merritt is another one of those young up and coming coaches that, I'm glad we have him here at WKU. I'm glad we're having a third season of him here at WKU because I think eventually, someone with his skill set and his knowledge and his passion for coaching and recruiting, just the total package, I think he's going to end up at Georgia, back in the SEC. He's going to be somewhere at a bigger brand name school eventually. But right now we have him here at WKU, and I'm really excited for what he's going to continue to bring to this coaching staff. And I'm glad that he's around for another year. Tyler, what are your thoughts on Coach Merritt?
Just like you, I like it. He was coaching the inside linebackers, and that group helped WKU. They were fourth in Conference USA in scoring defense in 2024. So I feel like that's a feather in his cap, and I definitely am excited to see what he's going to do as co-defensive coordinator for the football team.
Now, the next coach we're going to talk about is our cornerbacks coach. That is Jason Martin. It is his third season with WKU. WKU was second in the league in passing defense in 2024. In 2023, we were first in Conference USA, and we were seventh nationally in turnovers forced. Before WKU, he was at Independence Community College, including the last 3 years of that stint. He was the head coach at Independence Community College. So, again, I think this is another, one of those kind of young up and coming coaches who now has been here for a few years. Getting moved up to cornerback coach. He's got head coaching experience, even at the, JUCO level. That's somebody that at some point he obviously would like to be a head coach again. I think that you can go without saying that most position coaches would like to work their way up to, defensive coordinator, eventually head coach. He's already been there, done that at a different level. And I really like that he's back for another year. We've talked about the passing defense has been stellar the last several years. Talking about those turnovers forced. I think 2 of the last 3 or 3 of the last 4 years, we've been near number 1 in interceptions and turnover differential. So I'd like to see that aggressiveness continue. You talked about that with Devon Brown. I think that's going to continue. That aggressive, hard hitting, trying to make plays, trying to get the other team to cough the ball up. Defense, I really think that's going to continue, and I think Jason Martin is another great piece to that coaching staff that's going to help that continue. Tyler, what are your thoughts on Coach Martin?
I like it. Them coaches and players that come from, the lower ranks of football. Sometimes I like having them come in because they do have that little chip on their shoulders, or they're scrappy and they want to play the best they can, not for ego purposes, but to show that they can and show that they belong there. So, if Jason Martin, if he comes in or he's already been in, but if he can keep that up, and if he can get his players to play just as chippy and put the ego behind them and play for the team, play the unit, and play their best, um, I'm going to be thrilled with him, man. But as of right now, I ain't got nothing bad I can say against him. But I'm glad he's back again.
The next coach we're going to talk about is our defensive tackles coach, and that is Callie James. It is his first season at WKU. This is technically, by title, it is a new position. We didn't have a defensive tackles coach last year. We had a defensive line coach last year. That was Carson Hall, but he left and went to Baylor. And now we have a defensive tackles coach, which is Callie James, kind of the interior, defensive line. And then we have an outside and edges and run game coordinator coach that we'll talk about next. But Callie James, he previously was at Jackson State as the defensive line coach and the run game coordinator. He also was at Florida for 2 seasons before that. He played his college football at Tuskegee College. He was a 4-year starter at defensive tackle. And this really is just another example of Coach Helton finding that young up and coming coach who's been around, Jackson State, good program, Florida, good program, played and started for 4 years at Tuskegee College. If you see Callie James on Twitter, if you follow him by chance, he looks like he could still suit up and play defensive tackle. And if I was a player, that's somebody that I would want to learn from, somebody who's been there, done that, played football, for 4 years, started for 4 years, and now has been around a couple other programs and seen some high level football. And now he's here at Western Kentucky. So really excited for what he's going to bring to WKU, especially from a recruiting and coaching standpoint. Just again, another, just in my opinion, home run hire. I don't think Helton has made a bad hire this year for sure. You could probably look back and say there's been some in the past, but this staff, I think, is nothing but home runs, and Callie James is another one of those. Tyler, what are your thoughts on Coach James?
Yeah, when his last season at Jackson State, he helped his unit helped Tigers win the SWAC championship and a victory over South Carolina State in the Cricket Celebration Bowl, but also in the FCS season last year. Jackson State scoring defense. They averaged just 17.1 points allowed per game, and fourth in total defense with 275 yards allowed per game. They were 18th nationally in turnovers and 13th in rushing yards allowed, which is one major problem that we need to correct, is the other team being able to run all over us. And I feel like this guy right here, Callie James, he's going to have his unit lined up to be able to stop that and at least slow down the opposing team's running backs and or quarterbacks. So I feel like this is a great hire from Tyson Hilton.
Yeah, and then the last but not least coach that we're going to talk about position wise is our defensive line slash edge slash run game coach, and that is Coach Jimmy Lindsay. It is his first season returning to WKU. He was previously here from 2017 to 2019. Since then, he was at LSU in 2023, and he was at North Carolina last year in 2024. If anyone remembers Jimmy Lindsay from his previous stint here, 17 to 19, before Helton got here, um, he is a recruiting guru. He is the Georgia pipeline boy. He is somebody that obviously is going to be working right beside Callie James and the rest of the defensive coaches. But someone with his experience and his recruiting ability, I'm really excited to have Jimmy Lindsay back on this staff. I know he's had some health issues here recently in the past. Obviously, we hope those are all healed up, gone away, and he's fully on that road to recovery. But man, having Jimmy Lindsay back as soon as that hiring was announced, I could not have been happier to have him back because, man, he was amazing his first go around. He knows the expectations here. He knows what it takes to win here. Like you said, the run game defense was probably our biggest Achilles heel last year. And having somebody with his eyes and his experience of, being able to watch tape and see where we went wrong and where we need to improve and find the players that it's going to take to get better in that facet. I think Jimmy Lindsay's the perfect person to have for that. And then you have him right there beside a younger coach in Callie James, who is going to get that mentorship and that learning from an older, experienced coach like Jimmy Lindsay. So I just couldn't be happier with the hiring of Jimmy Lindsay. I think he has a lot of upside and a lot of positive things that he brings to the staff. And I think it's just another home run hire, man. Tyler, what are your thoughts on Coach Lindsay?
Yeah, in his final year here at the Tops before he left, he helped produce a top 25 overall defense. They allowed just 20.1 points per game. And I feel like having him back is definitely going to help us move forward in our win-loss record, and also maybe, fingers crossed, be able to get us to win that conference championship. He coached a lot of great players while he was here, and those players probably learned a whole lot from him, or actually had to. So I think this is just another. I would say home run, but I think this is a grand slam hire from Tyson Hilton. I feel like this is only going to help us overall in the long run. You're right. There's a huge upside. I don't think there's much of a downside to hiring Coach Lindsay back, and I'm just really thrilled to have him back.
100%. Now, I do want to touch on some of the support staff guys. I don't have a lot of information about them, but just some of the guys that are kind of behind the scenes and kind of helping with the operations of the football program and the other coaches, and at least mention their name and talk, give them a little bit of shine. The first guy is Travis Taylor. He is the chief of staff. Justin Brown is the director of player engagement. Jeray Thurman is the director of player personnel, and he is probably the best follow that you can follow of all of our coaches on Twitter. If you're not following Jeray Thurman and you're not seeing his WKU red, the big red eyes wearing bat signal whenever we have an incoming commitment, man, you are just missing a lot of energy and high quality content. And you can just see by following him that he's a high energy guy. Big baseball fan, has been keeping up with our baseball team and program. Just really excited for Jeray. I like having him back, and he's an excellent follow. So go follow him. Jason Veltkamp, he's our director of football strength and conditioning. Zach Crane, he's our director of scouting. Nick LaMatina is our director of recruiting. Charlie Weinberg is our director of equipment operations, and Chase Bithoff is our director of video coordinating. Tyler, what have you got here? Anything on the support staff or any of these other guys before we jump into our final words?
No, man, I'm just really glad to have. You're right. I do follow Jeray Thurman on Twitter as well, and you're right. His posts are always awesome. Jason Veldkamp, he's been here a while, a good while, and he's in charge of the strength and condition. He seems to be doing a pretty good job. I, you know, the rest of them, I'm glad to have them here. I feel like they're only going to learn and help us as a team and overall just make us a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And that's it. Episode 1 of the 2025 position series breakdown, covering our coaches, all the new and returning coaches. Obviously this kicking off our summer series, and we're just going to start diving into just every single position. And the coaches is always kind of one of the underrated ones in my opinion, but it always kicks us off and gets us going. I think I shared on Twitter earlier today that the Feel Steel magazine, which is kind of um, our college football Bible, will be in hand, next Sunday as we're recording on June 1st. On June 8th, we will have it digitally in our hands, and then soon after that, we'll have the physical copy. And that's kind of what we lean a lot on. What Phil still does. I think we really appreciate his efforts in covering all of college football, every level, G5, everybody. He does a great job, and we mainly use him as a main source of a lot of our information that we get and share on these podcasts for these the position breakdown episodes especially. So really excited jumping into that. I think I've told each summer as we've started this, it's one of my favorite exercises that really gets you just a lot more well versed and knowledgeable about our team, our staff. Not just you and I, but just anyone that's listening and consuming these episodes should have a lot better feel for who to know and what to expect from every single position. Starter or backup, new signee from the transfer portal or from high school, whomever it is, you should hear every single player's name listed over this summer series. So I'm really excited to dive into this. Like I said, it's one of my favorite parts of doing the podcast, even though it is quite intensive as far as the homework and the preparation and getting ready for every episode. But it is a labor of love, like we've said several times. It's something that we enjoy doing, and I'm really looking forward to continuing this series over the summer. So Tyler, hit us with your final words and take us on out of here.
You're right. Doing this every summer really does help. Me being able to figure out what players or what numbers goes with what player, their names, their stats, and all that, and it really does make us better fans. And I hope the listeners are definitely kind of learning from that too, because these players do deserve a lot of respect. That they deserve a lot of support. Um, and I feel like this is making our fan base better. And it is fun. It is a lot of recording, but man, at the end of the day, it's worth it. I was going to talk about sports anyway, so I might as well talk to you about sports and let the followers listen. Hopefully, they don't mind me butchering some names every once in a while or messing up. But this is something that it makes me feel. It's been too long since we recorded, man. It just feels right being back for this upcoming season, and I love it. I enjoy doing it. But with that, Moff, who has it better than us?
Nobody, buddy. You know it.
Go Tops.
Go Tops. Later, guys.
See you.